Hello, guys.
I need to sync the audio. Hold on.
Yes.
All right, go.
All right. Hello, guys. I'm Foster.
Hello, guys. I'm Luis Castillo.
Hola, señores. Soy Pablo.
And I'm Kim.
Today we'll be talking about Walker Percy and how he not only leads us into C3 consciousness, but also discusses many important concepts concerning our identity.
Mm-hmm.
So let's go ahead and jump right in it, guys. I have a list of definitions here that we could go over.
Okay.
So beginning with signal, it is the beginning of a dyadic relationship, like a stimulus response. So for example, if Kim here were to punch me in the face, my natural response would be to take it like a man, because that's what I am, right? I wouldn't punch her back. But
That's a good thing.
I'd make her feel bad for it and probably tattletale or something.
There can also be something like a cellular network. So basically, your phone will get signal, and if it gets signal, the response is it will work. Like you'll be able to make calls, text, and things like
Right.
that.
Like fireflies use this, right? They send signals to each other. Not only that, there's also
Dolphins.
Dolphins use it, and they're clicking whistles. Let's
Whales.
see.
I love
Ants
how
use it
my
with
punching you in
pheromones.
the
Whales
face is
too.
the first
Whales use it
example.
with their scent. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I love how my punching you in the face is the first example.
Well, I mean, you're the person on my right, so I just naturally.
It's natural. Yeah.
It is natural, guys.
It is, yes.
Anyways, so symbol might be something that we need to touch on right now. It is the signifier of an entity, and it also takes part in the triadic event, which
Yep.
means person to symbol and then the symbol to the entity itself. Right?
Yep. So like the thickness of the grass, basically, because the grass is thick, and that's what makes
Or
it.
Makes the grass.
Makes the grass. Grass,
Exactly.
Basically.
Yeah.
So the symbol would be like the word or the picture of grass.
Or even the-
but
Correct.
it's not grass itself. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah.
Yep.
Even like the smell of grass, right? The color of grass, the feel of grass could be a signal for grass.
Right.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And also, like hearing the word grass, like
I can smell the
you
pollen
can smell the
already.
grass,
Yeah,
you
I
can
smell
feel the
grass.
grass,
Mhm.
the
Like if I
itchiness. of
say, if you say something like moist, you know, you're gonna feel moist and feel
Moist.
comfortable.
Oh,
So
yeah.
You in that
That's
example.
moist.
Moist.
That's happened before. You're moist.
And so the main difference in these two things is that signal is dyadic, strictly dyadic, and symbol is strictly triadic. So animals, because they're dyadic creatures, deal in signals, and human beings, because they are triadic creatures, deal in symbols. If that makes sense.
Right.
Which brings us to environment and world and the difference between the two. So an environment is what, Kim?
Well, environment would be, I guess, the circumstances surrounding a dyadic event. So it'd be like the situation, it'd be like the atmosphere, it'll be essentially all the participating factors that would influence a dyadic event.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so like, could you give us a specific example, or I can't quite think of one.
I had one,
Mm-hmm.
and I lost it.
Well, we can
Actually-
think about it like. Oh, you go ahead.
I just thought of one. Okay, bear with me, this is a little weird. But you know the movie The Dark Knight?
Yes.
Yes, yeah.
So, like a huge thing with The Dark Knight is all the people in Gotham City are kind of crazy paranoid, like 95% of the time.
Because you know they have the Joker, they have.
Well, exactly. I think
Well,
I think the Joker, like the crime rate,
Yeah.
like the situation of where Gotham City is in relation to Bloodhaven, it's equally violent counterpart.
The dark entity.
Yes.
Yeah,
in the
it's-
city.
I
I
mean-
want to say that all those little factors kind of create the hostile environment that influences their
Right.
Behavior.
their personalities, their way of life, their sense of paranoia.
Right.
Yeah.
The same way, because everything's so screwed up there, you could say that probably influences Bruce Wayne's need to become Gotham's defender, or the Joker's like just general insanity.
So, do you think the environment of Gotham City was an atmosphere that pushed the Batman to become the Batman?
I think so. I mean, like part of it.
Or the Joker to become the Joker, for that matter?
Yeah, probably that is actually the answer, because if you think about it, like the crime rate was the event that happened that they killed like Bruce Wayne's parents was like criminal.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that is the whole Batman thing. That's for Batman, and for the Joker it might be like also anarchy, not anarchy, but like all the behavior that he was repressed by society. So that's why he just like took revenge on all the people that
Right.
he was traumatized by that.
Mhm.
So I think like actually this is very important. Like the environment can set the behavior of the person.
Right. Like if you look at Ave Maria, for example, like
Bubble word.
pretty mild climate. Generally, like nice people live here. It's fairly secluded, very much Catholic based.
Yeah.
It kind of influences a certain level of behavior.
Yeah.
Correct.
We don't have an extensive crime rate in
Right.
Yeah.
zero
in the Truman Show that we
0.9%.
live in.
It's in the middle of nowhere,
Yeah,
basically.
it is like the Truman Show, isn't
Yeah.
it? Yeah.
You're actually being filmed right now watching this video.
Yes.
Basically.
That's funny because we can see ourselves and we're also.
Right. Hmm. Yeah.
I've
So,
got it.
moving on.
To world. World. So things that have meaning and significance to us. So the appleness of the apple. We kind of covered the thingness of the thing and symbol. How does that relate to world, Foster?
So basically, what it relates to the world because everything in the world has a significance, and basically, what makes let's take a football field for example. What makes a football field a football field? Well, you have goalposts and you have lines, basically, and then you have a whole thing of grass, basically.
A whole thing of grass?
Whole thing of grass, and then but then there's other things that make up a football field too. Like you add like
That's the
you add like
grocery
a
list for
big
football.
like areas basically.
And a full thing of grass.
What?
A full thing? Yes, a full thing of grass.
No, what happened?
Grass.
Something like that.
We like grass. in
We
this
do.
group.
We do like grass.
I
Yeah.
had a friend once. He wrote a paper on how he hated grass.
How do you hate grass?
I was like, okay, give me one reason why I should hate grass. And he was like, Pablo, it's itchy. Like not for everyone.
At times,
it is,
but
bro.
Can't-
still.
Well,
It is,
then, yeah.
it is for me, bro.
Yeah.
When I think of
Yeah.
grass, I just think of the itchiness, bro.
Every time I think of grass,
Right.
though, I just think of him like stomping on it and like protesting with anti-grass posters.
Just feel like a flamethrower.
He's torturing the grass with like needles.
Right. But then another like example that could be done is like Kim said, maybe like a grocery store.
Yeah.
Basically, what makes a grocery store a grocery store? Well, you have rows of food. Different kinds of food. Different sections. Like a refrigerator section. And then like a deli section, and
Yeah.
then pharmacy section.
Yeah, like
so
the
basically
storeness
things
of
like
the
that.
store.
I'm sorry?
The storeness of the store.
Yeah,
Mhm. Yeah.
right. Like for animals, and we talked about this in philosophy class, Nature in Person, Bagot Franciscan actually. Dr. I'm going to call him Joseph Pieper or something like that.
Joseph Pieper.
Pieper, we read his book.
Yeah.
And it was all about like worship is the meaning of happiness. Like we're happy when we worship. But concerning world and environment, animals have an environment insofar that they can react, right? And not perceive things as clearly as human beings. So like if you put an animal in a grocery store, it wouldn't see a grocery store. It would just see a space full of things. Obviously, they would notice the food, right?
Right. Yeah.
But it wouldn't be able to interact with it in the way that we can. Which
Right.
brings us dyadic to dyadic and triadic.
Right.
Because in the triadic transformation model, we come together as like individuals or like as groups, and we name ourselves and the things around us. And so we develop a communicative relationship, whereas in a dyadic model, it's more of a transportation kind of a thing. So animals, for example, are strictly dyadic because they transport signals to each other. So you can imagine it like two maritime merchant ships, right? They're signaling each other what to do. Whereas for us, we would be like the captains on the ship talking to each other over the phone and not just the light signals.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, what you're saying with the triadic event is in a triadic conversation, you have both people, and then you have what's called the realm of the between, which is the person who's naming the entity with the symbol, and that realm between entity and symbol is just saying this is this.
And that's the world.
So that's the world of meaning, because it's the realm of the between. So it's us having the power to name things
Yeah.
for another person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, touching on the labeling thing, I would touch on simulacrum. that is like, for example, it's a word that becomes, well, it loses its meaning, I guess. Like it is repeated over and over and over again, over, over, over. It just sounds like a sound almost, right?
Bueller.
So Bueller,
Bueller.
Bueller, 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 Bueller.
Never stops.
But yeah, so just becomes a sound.
Right, just like in the seagulls from Finding Nemo. Bah, bah,
Mine.
mine.
You shut up.
You just
Literally, and they don't stop even if they see a crab. They keep
it starts
going.
to sound
Mine.
like this.
That is-
The
that is
sound
a
that
good
the
example.
seagulls actually make.
Yeah.
Doesn't it?
It does.
Yeah. So if you use a word that
Does it mean we're all
Too much
lonely if we
interest.
can understand what the Eagles are saying?
Mine, they're saying mine.
Yeah,
They're all
just,
saying
just,
mine.
Just,
Yeah,
does that mean we're
mine.
lonely if we can understand what the
Mine.
seagulls are saying?
Oh yeah, it does. 'Cause
Oh, okay.
You're one of those talking animals.
Exactly. We're all lonely. It's okay.
You know, Dr. Doolittle was a lonely kid.
Yeah.
In the movie.
He was lonely.
Yeah, he
Nobody
was.
talked to him.
Yeah.
What do you think of like the whole trying to train monkeys to talk, Luis?
I actually think that, I don't know, to talk?
Yeah, or
think
at least
that'll
like
be-
sign language because they have
Sign
been
language, I
mildly
know they
successful.
can do that.
I've seen that.
I mean, like,
Yeah.
there's like apes that are like very, very intelligent about that. So I think that'll be like more a dyadic
Dyadic.
thing to
'Cause it's
do
like a
because like
response,
it's
right?
yeah.
Stimulus.
So there's an action and there's response. Like think about it also with a dog, right?
Mm-hmm.
So just like set a bell, set the food. When you ring the bell, the dog is supposed to come and
Right.
eat the food.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
If you keep repeating that and
Yeah.
you only ring the bell, you're gonna start seeing the saliva of the dog just like drooling because of the stimulus response.
Yeah, there was
So-
a famous Russian.
Oh my
Yeah.
God.
Oh,
Ooh.
it's
Dun,
motion.
dun, dun.
It's
Planet of
motion
the Apes.
censored.
Planet of the Apes.
Planet of the
They're
Apes.
coming
They're coming.
They're coming, run!
Too
Write
intelligent.
it down.
So no, just like you were saying, the dog will keep going every time it hears a bell. It'll keep going, and then you'll see, like you said, you'll see the saliva
What
come
was the
out,
Russian-
Yeah.
and it'll just keep doing that.
Russian scientist
Yep.
name?
Mhm.
Who
Yeah,
did that
that's
experiment,
true.
do you know?
No, that
Oh,
sounds
Pavlov.
about right.
Pavlov. Oh yeah, that's who it was. Okay.
Yeah.
Pavlov's Dwight.
Yeah.
Oh
Every
yeah.
time the
Just
email
like the
goes through, you hear
Altoid, the Dwight Schrute and the Altoid. Every time Jim pushed the button to the computer, made the sound.
Made the noise.
Yes, Dwight, if
He
you
just
want an
went like
Altoid,
this.
and he handed it to
And
him.
Dwight would be
Yes.
at the end. Dwight was like, "What do you want?" He's like, "Oh, normally you hand me an Altoid."
It's like my mouth tastes
Yeah,
awful.
that's
all of a sudden.
He goes like, yeah, right.
He's like,
Hey, you remember that episode?
He's like, what?
he's like,
And he goes like that.
Yeah.
He's like, he doesn't even look up. He just,
Yeah.
he just keeps doing it.
Bro, The Office is one of the best shows.
honestly, it
But
is.
the whole trying to teach apes to speak, I get that they're incredibly intelligent and they can communicate things like
Sign
they
language.
can say things. I've seen one where they do like I love you,
You love
or
me.
yeah, they can do that kind of thing. I feel like that's just imitation. That's not.
Mm-hmm.
They can't meta communicate like we can.
Yeah.
They can't communicate about the fact that they're communicating, or how they're communicating.
Right.
That's it.
Whereas we're having this conversation right now.
We're communicating.
You don't see dolphins talking like this.
No, I've seen.
Granted, we don't know what the dolphins are saying yet.
That's true. I mean, they're very intelligent creatures.
Obviously.
And that brings us to meaning, the material and immaterial phenomenon. Luis, how would you elaborate on that for us?
I think the material definition about meaning should be like, for example, if we take water, right? We see water as like liquid. That'll be the material thing. The immaterial will be like, for example, the word. You can't touch the word. You can hear
You
it,
can still
but
feel it though through the word.
you can feel it. Like
Like
using
you can feel
the
the wetness of the water.
well, you can feel it like in some kind of sense, but you can't feel like physically. That's what I mean.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
You can like respond like your brain if you say water. Water.
It's like when you say spicy
Water.
and you can taste it.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
You can-
right.
Yeah, you
What?
can taste
Yeah,
it,
you can.
right?
I
Yeah.
don't like spicy.
Whenever you say water, I automatically become just parched. I'm just like, okay, I need some right now.
Same with the word. So
Dang
for
It's
me,
empty.
yeah. So for me, it's like fruit because every time I think of fruit, it's like sweet, and I can get the taste of sweet, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, which
You
is
guys ever watch that one SpongeBob episode?
oh,
Which
Where he goes into Sandy's house, but he doesn't have his.
Oh, the
tank.
water.
Oh.
I need it. Yeah. That's one of the OG.
I need water.
I don't need it. I need it.
Sponge needs
That's
water.
one of the best episodes, bro. It's
No,
like
honestly,
it's like
yeah.
the
That was
OG.
like one of the first.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
original.
I think that's the very first episode.
No,
No,
there's,
second episode. Second
That's
episode.
true.
Yeah.
Really? Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
that's
We're-
the second
we're
one
old
ever.
now.
We are so old, man.
Also, have you seen like the pizza when like?
Oh
Krusty
yeah.
Krab pizza. It's the pizza.
No.
No.
Yeah.
There's no.
I mean, I skipped around as a
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. My parents did not let me watch that.
Oh.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
My
sadly.
mom hates it. My
You
dad
poor
loves
man.
it.
Yeah.
You poor boy.
So
Motivation,
yeah.
which is the reason for doing anything.
So basically, being motivated to work out. You know, there's a reason. You know, you can be healthy. You know, live a healthy lifestyle. You know,
Grant.
I'm not doing it to be healthy.
Motivation is kind
you're
of
doing it for the women. I know. I know you are.
for all the ladies.
Hey,
That's what
that's
what men
motivation.
usually do at times. You know,
That's
do it
motivation.
for the women.
Yeah, I'm not getting any women attention. They're like, all the guys are coming up to me and they're like, dude, can I? You're like,
Can I just
Oh,
feel
no.
your muscles, like just for 1 second, please?
my
Oh,
gosh,
yeah.
it's so bad.
There's just a wall here all of a sudden.
There is, yeah.
Or can I just
the
touch your
moment I
bicep?
mentioned working
No.
out.
I'm
Wow.
15 minutes.
I can
ago,
tell you've been working out.
15 minutes ago, I was gonna tell you like, what do you do for like tricep exercise?
Really?
Yeah.
Dude, have
Mm-hmm.
you've been checking me out.
That's
Oh,
like
no.
one rule at the gym. Like I think like at the gym, like you get a compliment for every guy. Like every guy there. Like if you're just like getting like your work done, that's it. Like only guys compliment. Well,
Right.
maybe
Mhm.
sometimes girls.
I feel like the girls are too timid.
Yeah, that's
I
true.
feel
Girls are subtle.
No
okay?
girl is gonna come like, oh yeah. Can I see your palm? Like, can I see your bicep,
Yeah,
bro?
no.
Can I see your six pack? Like,
That's not what I'm actually not hoping for that. That was a joke. But
they're like, oh,
anyways, messages.
I want to show you this.
Messages.
Form and content matter.
We're still stuck on that last bit.
But yeah, messages. So
There's still a wall right here. Just so you know.
There's still a wall.
form
Yeah.
and content matter.
I'll talk about messages.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
All right. So the message is essentially what you're trying to say to the other person. That is the kind of the reason for communicating is
Mhm.
to say something or to give something to someone else.
Especially for interpersonal communication, you know, when you're trying to get to know someone, you do that through communication, through personal communication, you know?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
that.
And also, if you think about speech, you know, we're using speech as a message or try to convey a message. Speech is for telling the truth, right? Like, that is the purpose of speech, just telling the truth, and the purpose of communicating.
Like all-purpose speech, or
I think, yeah. All
was that
purpose.
Jordan
The
Peterson,
speech,
or was that
The-
Banana?
I think it's like rhetoric.
Rhetoric. Oh, okay.
If you
That
think
makes
about
sense.
it, like the purpose of communication, using speech is to tell the truth.
Right?
That is
It's-
the purpose of communicating.
It's to bring what's interior to the exterior.
Correct. And then talking about that, like movement of communication. What is it, Pablo?
Yeah, so it's like the transformation in relation to identity, right? So like when we communicate to each other, we are entering into the triadic event, but as we name the world around us and ourselves, like not me, myself, and him, himself, right? Like Foster and I, he would name me and I would name him.
Right.
We're actually changing through our words. And what's really interesting is that you will become, which actually this brings us to utterance and speech genre.
Yeah.
My two favorite things.
Before we go too far, I do want to
Utterance.
point out, like, when you say communication, and you say, like, it's like a transformation, communication literally means to give together. So you're literally giving
Right.
of yourselves to another person, and you're giving,
Which is something only persons can do.
exactly.
That's true.
Yeah, yeah.
Top that, dolphins.
Yeah, right? Take
Dumb.
that, dolphins.
Yeah.
Monkeys. But yeah, so the definition of utterance is basically a device of speech that conveys concrete little packages of information which is the basic semantic unit or meaningful whole characterized by a change in speaking subjects. So we use like these little like phrases in the moment following a speech genre, which is like an archetype almost, a way of talking. So like, for example, our parents gave us these genres of how to speak. So there's the, for example, the boss in the bathroom, right? There's does the father-in-law sound good kind of a talk, right?
There's the son, we need to talk.
That's true.
Genre.
Yeah.
That's another one.
Yeah.
But this forms, we're the sum total of all these voices that give these to us, and so
Yeah, well, that's the
we
thing with
become all this.
That's the thing with utterances. Like we inherit our voice from those before us because they give us the words that we use today. Like my grandma passed down this one little gold nugget of wisdom. Instead of swearing in front of little kids, she'd say, "I don't shiv a git."
Oh, that's great.
Her discreet little way of saying "I don't give a shit," but
That's very Christian for.
very Christian.
That's
of her.
great. Yes.
So
Yeah.
now under my breath, sometimes I'll just say, once or twice a day, "I don't shiv a git."
But yeah, it's
Yeah.
cool because like
Don't like it.
gets
I don't like it.
gets like passed down through generations, I guess.
Mhm.
Yeah.
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 Also, not just from generations, but like from our friends.
Yeah, that's true.
From TV,
Right.
from
Basically,
books.
yeah. Heck, look at Fred Figglehorn. He says "gamut" instead of "damn it." He says "gamut."
You said the word.
Sorry,
what is it, bro?
gamut.
We're live.
Gamut.
We're on TV, bro.
It's with a G. I said gamut.
Get him out of here.
It's gamut.
Language.
G.
Talking about the triadic event,
No,
we
it's
use
a-
like the definition about everything is something.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Is that correct?
Yeah, yeah. Here's the thing, though. One thing I did want to add. I'm sorry if you don't mind. me saying. We understand and interpret the world through the speech genres and utterances we surround ourselves with, right? So in order for us to name the world, we would have had to have been in a triadic event with someone else, if that makes sense, and that broadens our understanding.
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
that makes sense. Going through it, like, you have to have like some prior knowledge, right?
Uh-huh.
Maybe to label things. For example, with our parents, they teach us how to name. Oh, is that a chair? Yeah. Is that a table? Is that a computer?
That's
Is
a
it?
laptop.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They didn't do
You're
it.
wrong.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So they teach us how to
False,
name
that is
things. That's we did. Maybe they don't teach us that well, but they try. But anyways,
It's true. It's true.
that also brings us to the dyadic event. That is the opposite of the triadic event.
Yes, but did we talk about like the most appropriate symbols based on the audience for
Like what?
triadic? So like in
I think
communication.
that goes back to speech genres when you're like
Oh,
you're,
okay.
you're selecting
Yeah.
words for your audience.
Mm-hmm.
So
And
that's what
you
we
use
talk about.
different utterances. You use different words depending on who your audience is.
Right.
One thing we should have mentioned though is as far as back as you can back up where we receive our utterances from. We get it from our parents. We get it from our grandparents, so on and so forth. Back to the beginning of time.
Mm-hmm.
But then, like as Catholics, we believe in our first parents, Adam and Eve. But you have to wonder where they got their first utterance from.
Right.
We got it from God.
Exactly.
Yeah, God told them, okay, you're on here. Go name all these animals.
God's
Yeah, so
first
he-
words
he
were
told
literally be
Adam,
fruitful,
Yep.
multiply.
Go name all these animals.
Well,
Yep.
but like God walked in the garden with Adam, naming
spoke with them.
everything and spoke
Mhm.
with them.
Right.
And then nothing. Adam found nothing that could be like a partner suitable to him, and so we have Eve. Eve is the cause of all problems, so therefore.
No.
I'm kidding.
No, he's not.
Slightly.
Wasn't Adam being so freaking bored of himself, that's what I never.
No, Adam was kind of dumb. I apologize for him. And that brings us to the dyadic event, right? I mean, we kind of already touched on this.
Yeah, we did.
Mhm.
We can move into transcendence though.
Yeah, yeah.
Right?
Yeah, transcendence. Yeah.
So,
basi-
oh, go.
Yeah,
So
go
basically,
ahead.
so transcendence, basically, so it leaves the world to explain it in abstract concepts, basically. So basically, transcendent man is godlike in the sense as the namer and knower, in ways, which is why we don't like psychologists, basically, because they transform us and they tell us all these things, basically.
They tell us all these things by using labels on ourselves.
Right.
It's just-
Psychologists are good people, but
Are
sometimes
good. No,
they
But sometimes they mess with your head too much.
Exactly.
Here's the thing, though. It is good for you to know yourself through the traumatic event you enter into with them.
Mm-hmm.
But what they do is they give you labels and they try to make you define yourself.
Mhm.
Or they treat you like a case, not as a person. They miss the
Just like a number.
personness of the person.
Yeah,
Mhm.
we can use also scientists as an example too.
Yeah.
Because they go for like the all-knowing, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Right.
And they're just
Yeah.
like so into just nothing out there, just this thing that I know. So it's
Right.
also a bad thing if you think
So,
about
like,
it.
like for example, like physicists will only think of things in physics, or
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I guess I'll stay in the scientist example because maybe physics involves many other things, right?
okay,
Like maybe if you think about physics, like is there like someone that is like Catholic and also is a physicist?
Yeah, there have been many. I think like wasn't Galileo?
I think like
I
if
think
you
he was.
Physicist? Yeah, I think
Yeah,
so.
he was Catholic.
but if you think about a scientist, you think about like agnostic or atheist, right? Because it
Yeah,
it
yeah.
almost like it's like science and religion, right?
Mm-hmm.
They are like they should go together, right?
Mhm.
But there's like many we know that they almost don't, or they can be together. Like, but people like
well, true
look
science
at it.
doesn't necessarily contradict anything the Catholic Church would say.
Correct, but if you look at, like into like in the secular world, there's like a lot of people who think
Yeah, in a
that-
secular
Darwin.
world, they feel like science has to conform to.
Yeah, right, basically. Mm-hmm.
No problem.
No. See?
Yeah.
I'm the Hispanic one.
I know
No, no, no,
Spanish
Foster.
too. You're not the
There's
only one
three
that
Hispanics
took
here.
Spanish. Yeah, I know Spanish.
This is the only white kid in the group.
That's racist.
And
Oh.
Kim actually backhands Pablo.
She
for that.
actually-
So okay.
Um,
Let's see
Imminence.
how Pablo
Yeah,
responds
imminence.
to this dyadic event.
Tears.
Evidence is living in the natural, right?
Mhm.
With
And
So it's the material, the bodily, the I have to eat, I have to like
right.
rest.
I have to exercise.
I have to take showers.
Eat,
I have to exercise.
sleep.
Yeah.
Like
hygiene.
another thing with
Food,
transcendence
gym.
versus imminence.
Right. that's basically my life right now.
Another thing with like transcendence and imminence is, well, one example I think is I go to this summer camp every year as a counselor, and it's like super Catholic. So there's mass, there's adoration, there's confession every single day, the entire
Yeah.
week, and the rest of the day you're just going. You're outside the entire day in Florida. You're in the sun, running around, screaming your head off. You're having a blast. And then at night, they pull you in for adoration, for mass, and the rosary. And it's crazy because you kind of enter, when you go into adoration at the end of the day and you're exhausted and all you want to do is just kind of sit, you enter into this transcendent state where it's just you and God.
Mm-hmm.
So we have praise and worship, there's music, and eventually you kind of feel yourself almost exit your body. Like it's just you and God in that moment.
Right. So basically we're talking about the example that we could use of us going into like some kind of zone, basically.
Exactly.
So like from the movie Soul, basically. So what they do is they go into this place that's from basically another dimension, basically,
Right.
where you're in a zone and
You enter
you're
into
like,
this place that your mind just
mind.
becomes so encapsulated in that you
forget everything else.
forget everything else,
Mhm.
right? And
So-
the Knicks lose another one.
You get.
The greatest line in movie history.
I don't know that reference.
It's okay.
Yeah.
didn't understand that.
I was homeschooled, so.
So was I. It's not an excuse. The thing is, like,
So you get
as-
shot into orbit, basically.
Essentially, yeah. The thing is, eventually you realize, okay, I kind of have to eat and sleep. 'Cause at this point, during summer camp, it's your fourth day in, it's been 110 outside every single day, and you're exhausted, and you're like, you know what, this is great, but I should probably go sleep before I die.
Yep.
I should probably go eat and drink water. So you do kind of require a balance between transcendent and imminent, periods of time.
Yeah, so you can like return to your. Well, I mean, this brings us to re-entry, but I do want to mention some of the problems with that first. So you can actually stay in orbit even though you're dealing with like imminence. So, for example, it was Picasso, right? He started molding his bread when it was time to eat into like statues and stuff because he always wanted to be in that zone, in that transcendence of reality, in that naming of things. Which is another thing because the artist and the writer, they bring the rockness back to the rock. You know what I mean? They rename things for us, and we're consumers of that. But yeah, so if you wanted to re-enter the basically like the world, you can return to your roots. You can disguise yourself. You can turn to alcohol,
Violence, suicide.
violence, suicide. You can travel to faraway places, or you can come to realize that you are sponsored by God Himself,
Yep.
right? And just come to prayer and be open
Right.
to that relationship with.
Well, the big thing with re-entry into imminence is you don't want to go back to being yourself.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big thing because you're leaving this state of ecstasy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah.
And when you come back to imminence, you're kind of like, well, great, now I'm here again. I think that's why people resort to things like alcohol or drugs is because they want to forget themselves. Or why people try to stay in orbit because they're like, no, I'm just gonna perpetuate this state of ecstasy as long as possible, so I never have to go back to what that was. Or like you said, you can, come to realize that you have sponsorship of God
Yeah.
and essentially be born again.
So people get bored of themselves because they're so self-interested that they turn to transcendence to help break them out of that.
Yes.
Well, that brings us to the autonomous self, right?
Yeah, that brings us to the autonomous
So
self.
that's like naming ourselves only and nothing else. Just like disappearing from the world. And why is it so dangerous? Do you guys know? Well, I think
Well, go ahead. Yeah, I was going to mention something. But
like it's like dangerous because like you
Specifically to
isolate
Percy.
yourself, huh?
specifically to Percy, though.
Specifically to Percy, I mean, I think Percy like did want to make one thing clear, and that is like we all need help from another, and to not like isolate yourself completely and just like say, oh yeah, I can solve all my problems. I'm selfish. I'm
Self-sufficient.
yeah, but it's the extreme self-sufficient. I
Yeah.
think like going to the extreme, forgetting about everyone else, your family, your friends, everyone in the world, even like animals. So I think like for Percy that is like very, very important that he touches upon that. Just like you need help from other people.
Mm-hmm.
Counsel.
You can't communicate with yourself. That's the big thing.
Yeah, you need.
You can.
You
but
can.
The thing is that
No, but it's not technically communication because you're not with someone.
But it is geared towards the other.
No, it's geared towards you. But if you're talking to yourself, it's geared towards you.
so if you
You
think
can't
about
communicate
like
by yourself.
if you're in a bad spot,
Mhm.
like you're sad about something, you're angry or whatever, like if you only
Talk to
like,
yourself.
yeah, talk to yourself.
It's just not gonna get better, right?
it's not gonna get better. You're digging your own grave. Like just
Basically.
like basically.
And if
you
you're
know?
comforted by someone, then you start to realize, okay, you know what?
Things are not-
Things are gonna be better.
That is
you know.
true.
Like I have
That is
I have a sister who's planning on studying psychology when she gets to school,
Good.
and she was studying what happens when people go through like emotional repression.
Yeah.
Is they try to isolate themselves and they kind of let their thoughts consume them because the only person they'll talk to is themselves. So they're just kind
Wow.
of they're saying all these things to themselves, and that's just constantly beating them down because they're becoming so absorbed inside their own head.
If they do that, then that takes their attention off the other. Should they like talk to someone else?
They should talk to someone else.
Well, if they let's say if they do, but they're still stuck in their own thoughts, that takes them out of transcendence and makes it more of a dyadic event on their side. So it'll never ever get better.
Right. Well, if they keep, the thing is, you have to let another person into the relationship. You have to let another person in. That way, they can start. At least you can start naming things for them, and then they can start naming things for you. Because then they can try to give you the help that you need. Because the more you stay absorbed in your own head, the more your mind is just going to keep replaying all these negative messages you're sending. Because you're just sending messages when you're talking about yourself. You're sending signals out and they're just bouncing back at you.
Right.
But when you're speaking to another person, you're not just repeating these bad messages. You're getting a response from someone who's trying to help you.
Do you guys want to move on to the consciousness?
Yeah. So C1 consciousness.
I did want to
Or
mention
before
Oh,
that.
yeah. What do you want to mention?
the autonomous self is so dangerous to Percy, specifically because the autonomous self tends to like inhabit the spirit of the erotic, right? And then also this unspoken thirst for violence, just like for the attention of it, right? So like if you're so consumed by yourself, but you still seek that like relationship with another, you're going to turn to it, you're going to turn to something that'll give you that through selfish means. So that would be sex outside of marriage, violence, so like wars, unis, etc.
Yeah, so, for example, something as love, like, loses its meaning, right? Like, if you're practicing just like, as you said, those kind of things, it begins to lose the meaning of it. Like, just like, becomes like, almost like repetitive. You don't feel like the essence of love.
Right?
That
'Cause
example.
You're not being
Yeah.
changed anymore.
Yeah.
It becomes dyadic.
It becomes the addict.
Yeah.
And for this, like, violence for the sake of violence. I mean, it's like pure anarchy.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So
So C1 consciousness.
yeah. So isn't that like Edenetic, childlike, basically? So basically, an example would be Helen Keller. Basically, how she lived her life. How she was born non-blind and non-deaf, but then
She
after
was blind.
Blind
She-
and deaf.
No, that was
Not
before.
full.
Because like what? 3 months, 9 months after she
9
was
months.
9 months after she was
Are you
born.
laughing at me, Louis?
No, bro.
Yes.
Well, yeah,
She's laughing
actually,
with
yeah.
you, it's not for me.
So then, like I was saying, 9 months.
I was gonna say the same thing. Like, yeah, she was sorry. Alright, go ahead.
Oh man. so like I was saying, so 9 months after she was born, she was blind and
Yeah.
and went deaf.
It's been a long day, everyone.
It has.
Yeah, yeah.
But then she started figuring things out, just by touch and by
Right.
feel and everything like that.
So she rediscovered it
Rediscovered the world basically,
with each touch.
which each touch.
That's
And then
awesome.
she had Anne Sullivan there to kind of make that touching sensation triadic, as opposed to just being her touching it and thinking, okay,
Cold or
I can
wet.
cold, wet, etc. But she was able to give her the symbol to the entity.
Mm-hmm.
She was able to tell her, this is water, or water is
This.
wet. And that way she was kind of able to rediscover, like, the world of meaning.
Mm-hmm.
She wasn't just living in this perpetually dyadic environment.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Very true.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Everything is.
It does. I know this will like sidetrack us a little bit,
Go ahead.
but
Yeah.
do you know how like we can only perceive certain like sound waves, light rays, right?
Yeah.
And things like that.
Mhm.
We don't know if there's something like we can't even perceive the angels, right? For example, so there are things that might be in existence, like living things that we can't perceive. Like, what if there are aliens? Because
Right.
hear me out. Helen Keller couldn't perceive the world outside of touch. That was
Right.
That was it for her, right?
Mm-hmm.
But there was a world. You guys ever like wonder like if there's something like Horton Hears a Who, like if there's something
Right.
bigger than
Like
bigger
on a
out there?
speck,
Yeah,
basically.
like what if we're on a speck and there's like
Spec.
What's the spec?
huh?
What?
She
Oh
said
no, go
something.
ahead. Okay.
I didn't hear it either. I heard a noise and I was like, okay.
Exactly.
But
Yes.
yeah, like going back to your point, I think like it is fair like for us to ask ourselves if there's like life beyond us. Like also, I think when Percy mentions the aliens,
Mm-hmm.
that'll be
Yeah.
like what type of consciousness? C1.
That would be
C1.
Correct.
Well,
C1,
I
yeah.
remember they ask, "Are you fallen?" Because we haven't gotten there yet.
Yeah. So
Mhm.
you think about it like a toddler, right?
Right.
He doesn't know he's fallen.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
it's like with the aliens though, they are knowing, but like a toddler, they haven't experienced brokenness yet,
And yeah.
Yeah.
or at least not the knowledge that they're broken.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Which brings us to C2.
Mm-hmm.
That is dangerous.
I'm sorry. you
Yeah,
were
C2
gonna say
is
something
yeah,
No, go
it's
ahead.
dangerous,
more? Oh,
basically.
okay.
I was opening up to you.
Oh, great. So back to me. So yeah, C2 is dangerous, fallen, it's self-conscious, because man believes himself fixable on the semantic axis.
So basically, like Thanos, basically.
Yeah, basically.
Kind of like.
Wait, explain.
Well, Thanos, because what he does basically is he thinks he's the most powerful in the world, and that by just eliminating half of life, he thinks the world's going to be better.
For himself.
Which is, you know. and-
I actually just went back and watched that movie, and like every sentence he gives includes
Yeah.
me or I.
Yeah.
I am inevitable.
I am inevitable.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Like I.
Me.
Yep. And just by having that power from the stones, and basically with the snap, he believes he has the power
And
and everything.
Throughout the movie, he also tries to make like connections with Gamora and Infinity War.
Mhm.
He tries to make connections with his children, but he's like, "No, you're my children. What I say is right. I'm doing this for what's good."
Mhm.
But they're like, "Well, you don't know what's good
Right.
because you're
Uh-huh.
a monster."
And he's only focused on himself,
Yep. Yep.
basically. Right?
Doesn't care about anyone else but himself.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yep.
what about C3 consciousness?
Well,
Would it
yeah,
be-
that's basically like when we recognize we are fallen, but we're hopeful because we are Homo viator, right? We're a pilgrim on a journey, and we can get to C3 consciousness by assistance from something other than ourself.
Right. So like a counselor or like a psychologist or like
Right.
God in the
Right.
Christian sense.
Yeah, like God Himself, like because we know God and God knows us perfectly without a symbol,
Yep.
we actually know ourselves better by entering into tragic events in relationship with Him.
I wanna bring this up because this is
Yeah.
thing that's been like messing with my head lately. We were talking about the Tony Robbins example. Would
Yeah.
we consider
Yeah.
Would we consider the people who go to see him C2 or C3 consciousness?
Well,
think
I
yeah,
could give a
that's-
personal example. Actually, I
Yeah,
was one
what
of
do you
those
think?
people.
What do you think?
Oh, really? You
Really?
I was a Tony Robbins fan. Yeah, so I read his
Oh,
books
wow.
and listened to his talks. I didn't actually go to any events. It was very. It's all about you and it's all on you. But he did emphasize that we needed to do charity work, bring goodness into the lives of others.
Yeah.
But it was Thanos, essentially. No, I'm not even kidding. It was like Thanos.
You
Tony
felt like
Robbins
that?
is
Like-
Thanos.
Yeah, I felt like because so after I would like read one of his videos or articles, immediately I'd be thinking about myself all
The time.
day, all the time, and at the end of the day, I would feel depleted and I had like a headache, and I'd be like, "What is this is supposed to help me?" So I go back for more, and more and more.
It's
Eventually,
a vicious
I-
cycle.
So
'cause you're
what were you
constantly
saying?
Pointing back at yourself.
Exactly.
What do you say, like Tony Robbins? What type of consciousness?
Yeah.
So I would say he's definitely C2.
Okay.
C2.
That's fair.
So,
Wh-
so
which-
he could be dangerous in some ways, basically.
He can be dangerous, yeah. So his little gimmick, he's not going to be able to keep it up forever. He will stumble, because you essentially, and this is like emphasized by also like lots of Instagram, communities. I call it the cult of grind, right?
That's like a name.
Cult of grind.
They
That
grind
sounds
themselves.
like a sketchy New York coffee shop.
Yeah.
Cult of grind.
No,
Welcome to our cult of
There's like a
grind.
cultic meeting at the grind every other Saturday.
Literally.
There you go.
Yeah, that's where everyone goes, basically.
That's the slogan for it. Nice.
That's the slogan
Yeah.
for it.
So I think like to the point that Pablo was saying,
Mhm.
I think I agree with that, and also C2 consciousness has to be
You become
The eternal
godlike in a
self,
sense,
right? Yeah.
but in
Right.
the wrong way.
okay.
Mhm.
Yeah.
In the evil way,
In the
basically.
evil
But-
way. Yeah, you
Yeah.
turn from being a reflection of God to
A reflection
focusing
of self.
a reflection of
which
self.
Is,
Yeah.
That's essentially the dogma of Satanism is worship yourself.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
Think only about yourself.
So to an extent, you could compare the message of Tony Robbins to Satanism in that sense.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying he's a devil worshiper or anything.
No,
Right.
Yeah,
it's not
right,
similar
right.
to
But to the
Yeah.
extent that people are seeking help, though, from him, is a recognition that they're
Mhm.
broken. That's
Mhm.
another thing I'm confused by. Is
Right. Mm-hmm.
They can.
Well,
in that sense, I don't know, but
so he's basically he taught himself psychology, and a couple of other things. Psychology, what's it called again? Philanthropy, philosophy, and he's like an Aristotle almost, but it's different because he'll give you hacks to like increase dopamine and increase serotonin and get yourself in the mood.
Right.
So he has some helpful tips, and I respect the guy. You know, he feeds like 4 million people a year, but he's making a couple mistakes along the way,
right.
Yeah.
and that would be problematic. in
Granted,
the
we're
end.
human. We all make mistakes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Basically.
I feel like I
Every
agree.
day.
I agree with the point that maybe he's making mistakes and all, but at the end of the day, I think like he's helping like people, so that's
Uh-huh.
a good point for him. But
Oh yeah, he's
also-
obviously helping people.
But also like he's gonna stumble upon like that just like autonomous self and C2 consciousness, putting that together, that's not gonna lead like anything good at the end.
no, it's not lasting. So even so, Dante talks about this. Like there are good pagans or the noble heathens, right? And they go to limbo, but that's not going to bring you to paradiso, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
So it's the best that you can do.
True.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
So, how do we say the C2 consciousness and the autonomous self relate back to each other?
Well, I think we just like
We just did that.
yeah, we just like
We
covered.
kind of
like,
talked about that.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
They're
it's
both
like
self-naming.
the example of Tony Robbins.
Yeah.
Tony Robbins.
Right?
Yeah, just Tony Robbins.
They're both self-naming, both self-dictating.
That's the perfect
Dictating.
example.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
Which could lead to C2 conscious, which is
They're-
basically.
they're
Yeah,
both
C2.
trying to fix
Mhm.
themselves in one place, but because
Right.
we're man on a journey, we're never in one place.
Right.
And
if
they're
you name-
labeling like yeah.
And if you
it's
name
labeled.
yourself going into a triadic relationship or event, it's all about you, anyways, right?
Mhm. Right.
So you can never actually name the other because you won't let the other name you,
Right.
Yeah.
if that makes sense. So it becomes dyadic, and so you become more what? Animalic in that way, and less of a person.
Right.
Like,
More of.
I'm not saying like spiritually, but like you become less of what you should be.
Right. Less of the person that God created you to be, basically.
Yeah, yeah. Which is why C2 consciousness is so dangerous, and why C3 is absolutely essential
Mm-hmm.
for
Yeah.
not only our own prosperity, but the prosperity of those around us.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
That's all
It's
good.
around us, yeah.
Yeah. And I think
Awesome.
on that note,
Yeah.
we'll end right there.
Yeah.
We're
I
kinda-
think we covered everything, yeah.
Everything.
Awesome. Sweet.
Alrighty.
Wonderful
I got
talking
Awesome.
to you.
It's been excellent talking
It
to
has
you.
been excellent. Thank you for listening, guys. We
Thank you for putting up with this.
yes.
Thank you guys.
Yes, thank you. Have a good night.
Subscribe right here and hit the like.
Hit the likes.
Alrighty, take care.
Take care.